Hey everyone, Julian here, and today I'm going to be talking to you about how to make cool synth loops in the style of Fortet, Jon Hopkins, and Lorn. As usual, you can get the project file and samples in the description, and MIDI in this case as well, either on my Bandcamp or if you're a patron on my Patreon. You can also pick them up there. And yeah, let's dive in. So this is the loop you heard in the intro. The first layer we have here is this little analog lead synth thing. It sounds like this. So the way that I made this was I actually started with the MIDI, and what I did here was basically I wrote in this cool kind of like arpeggiated pattern that just sort of falls into the simple chord progression. So if you look here at the notes, you can kind of see like this first chord is, or this first part of the arpeggio is just shaped around an A sharp major chord. It's just a bunch of notes from there, and then for the second chord, it's the same A sharp major, but I just moved the root down to A. So it gives it a little bit of a different feel. So it's really not too difficult to write these kind of patterns. Like I said, just write something cool and rhythmic that follows like a clearly defined chord progression, and you shouldn't have too much trouble. So then for the synth sound here, I have analog. I use 2 saw waves and a little bit of white noise. So the saw waves are set with the octave down -1 on the first oscillator. And then on the second one, we have it just at the regular octave, but it's up 7 semitones, so it's an octave and 7 semitones higher than the first one, or an octave and a fifth, whatever you want to say. But it just gives it this cool kind of feel, because you're not just hearing the root note, essentially. So then after that, I have this low-pass filter, and on here, we have a little bit of an envelope, and then you can see I also used LFO 1, so that's what's giving it the kind of like modulation. You can hear it's kind of opening and closing there. That's because of this LFO here. This is just a good way to give it some movement. Like, this is kind of part of the whole loop thing, is you want it to have some movement. You don't want it to just be like the same thing the whole time. So adding this LFO on that filter frequency gives it some nice modulation, where otherwise it would just be kind of a little bit more boring. So then after that, I have the amplitude envelope set like this. And then I have a little bit of vibrato just to give it some movement. Again, like a little bit of pitch fluctuation can be kind of cool. And then after that, I have actually this optional saturator. So I was playing around with this and I thought it would be cool. I can kind of talk about some other techniques with it, but this sounds like this. So what I did here was I just used the drive and then this wave shaper down here to make it sound kind of more, I guess a little bit more chaotic, a little bit more distorted. But it's cool because as the filter is opening and closing with the LFO, it's sending more and more signal into the saturator, and thus it's kind of making that fluctuate as well. So it kind of goes along with the thing I was saying with the LFO about giving the sound some movement and having it sort of change over time. So then after that, I have this ping pong delay, which is just set like this. I didn't touch the filter, and then I set it to like the time mode. It's on 180 milliseconds, and then the feedback and the dry wet are set like that. There's no reverb on this sound, so this is just giving it some stereo width and some space. So then after that, I have this glue compressor preset, actually. If you go under glue compressor, it's this mastering add sustain. This just gives it like a little bit more of kind of like, compressed sound. But it's kind of like just taking this and really squashing it and giving it like that kind of sampled feel. So I'll show you without it. And then with. You can hear, like I said, it's giving it just that super compressed, like kind of sampled, textured sound. And usually I wouldn't go for this much compression, but in this case I think it sounds cool. Like I said, we're just trying to give this sound a little bit more of an interesting texture. So after that, I have this frequency shifter here. Excuse me, I cannot talk today. And this is sort of doing a few things. So for one, I have this LFO on here, so it's just kind of moving the pitch a little bit more. It goes along with the vibrato that's on the analog. It's just kind of like making it, just giving it some more fluctuation. And then I have the dry wet set to there, 89%. So what that does is it actually gives it like this weird kind of like tonal thing. I'll show you. Here's on 100. And then when we turn it down, you can hear it kind of sounds like a notch filter, but I just thought it sounded cool, so I added that. And then after that, I have this multiband compressor, which is also a preset. It's a standard multiband comp. Yeah, you can see. But I turned up the inputs of each of these bands, so it's just kind of boosting the gain a little bit. And then this stuff over here is helping to keep it a little bit more flattened out. So this goes with what I was doing with the compressor. I am sort of doing some pretty heavy compression on this and really flattening it out, but it's giving it like a very nice kind of feel. So then after that, I have a limiter. This is actually also a preset. I was just playing around with these. It's called Push here. It's basically just a simple boost there. You can see it's just adding like 4.5 dB of gain or decibels of gain to the sound and then squashing it a little bit. But yeah, so that's how I made the synth loop. So you can see like it sounds pretty complex. It's really not too difficult. It's all pretty much like simple stuff that you just sort of stack on top of itself, I guess. So then the next layer here is this little pad thing that plays through. It sounds like this. So for this, I just started with this little pad sound. I think I had sampled that from like some ambient song or something. But then I took that and pitched it down -6 and unwarped it. And it sounded like this. So then after that, I added a low pass filter to just cut out the highs, and then this high pass filter to cut out some lows. So this just kind of like helps the other synth loop. The thing is, like, if this was a part in like your track, for example, where like maybe all the other instruments cut out and then that synth loop was sort of the main focus, you would kind of still want to have something like this going in the background just to like ground it. If I turn it off, this is cool, but I feel like this thing just sort of helps like get the point across, if that makes any sense. So yeah, so that's pretty much it for this tutorial. Like I said, I just want to show you some cool tips on how to make cool synth loops and stuff. Like I said, you can get the project file in the description, either on my Bandcamp or if you're a patron on my Patreon. And yeah, check out my social media. It's on the screen now. Thank you again, everybody, and I will see you tomorrow with another tutorial.